Hey everybody, welcome to our exciting live podcast at the Cape Cod Symposium on Addictive Disorders. My name is Liz Jorgensen. I am one of the sober chicks. I'm here with my dear friend and colleague, Sarah Allen Benton.
Hello and welcome, and we are really focusing our topics on caring for the caregiver, taking care of yourself and wellness, and as Liz likes to put it,
taking care of ourselves, take my advice, I'm not using it. And it's kind of funny when you first hear it, but the part that's not funny is many people, many dear friends, myself, I'll speak for myself, I was drawn into the helping profession, partially because I was a primary caregiver for some not very well people in my own family, and it took me many years of struggle and my own therapy and my own practice to figure out how to both care for myself well and have the energy to care for others. And there are many people in the field who figured it out well and have some wisdom to give, and we are interviewing some of our friends here at the conference about how they figured that out.
And in my experience, in early sobriety, it was like a full-time job. I had to just to get by. I was functioning at a lower rate once I...
When you were sober?
Yes. I lost my level of functioning. So I was doing all kinds of self-care and yoga and therapy and women's recovery groups and self-help meetings and acupuncture and all of this stuff. And it was literally a full-time job. I don't have to work quite that hard at it. But it's just, over time, I think people start to get a little cocky, and I don't need to do what I did and take care of myself in the beginning of either my career or my sobriety or whatever it may be. So we're here today. We're honored to have Alan Budd, who is a dentist, and he's also the program manager for the Dental Health and Wellness Committee in Massachusetts. And he does so much amazing work for helping dentists with self-care. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about some of the work you do and also just your thoughts on this topic and the importance in your field in particular.
Well, thanks, Sarah. I'm really glad I ran into both of you. I can relate to what both of you said, particularly, and something actually that I hadn't thought much about is the role I've played in my own family as a caregiver, though not necessarily what we normally think of in formal terms as a caregiver, that is, not nursing someone at their bedside, but giving a lot of support. So thank you for stopping me. I am the director of the Dentist Health and Wellness Program, which historically has been about trying to help dentists who have issues with substance use disorder. And what I'm really focusing on presently is trying to identify and maybe support not only those who have already reached the pinnacle of risky use, but the high-risk population as well, which for whom the issue of addiction really isn't on the radar screen. So right now that's the focus of my work.
I found it interesting. There was some research that you had actually passed on to me, but it was saying that one of the leading vulnerabilities for dentists in particular to have substance use disorders was stress.
A friend of mine and I, he is a researcher, he was at Harvard at the time, and he had a background in public health and is interested in epidemiology, but we did a very informal survey of the health and the health behaviors of dentists in Massachusetts last year, and the single common ingredient in the health issues that came up frequently was stress. There's no doubt about it.
One of the things we want to do with this interview is we're giving some information about risk factors for healthcare professionals and helping professionals, but also asking personal questions about how do you take care of yourself, because you're not only a dentist, you're actually, if I can say, an activist, working very hard to help other dentists and help other healthcare professionals to take care of themselves, to maybe find the risk factors, to maybe find recovery for those who've crossed over the line to addictive disorders. So if you don't mind us asking, what are your strategies for self-care, Alan? Because you seem to have figured out how to practice and take care of others and doing very well at it.
Yeah, well, I've been involved in self-help groups, including 12-Step, for quite a long time now. And anybody who has any familiarity with those types of programs know that one of the goals and one of the ways that people help themselves is by helping others. So it just falls out of that, and it has become a mission, if you will. And because I'm in this somewhat unique, it's not unique, but I'm in this position where I have the ability to apply what I've been given, or to share what I've been given with a niche population. It turns out dentists are not immune to the same problems.
So
No.
surprising! Get out of here.
Right?
Stop it.
So specifically,
What about orthodontists? Just kidding. Is there like a thing between orthodontists and dentists so you guys get along?
I can't talk about
You
that.
can't speak about that on the record. Off the
No,
record,
we can
we'll talk later.
about that after the show.
Okay, after the show.
So with dentists, the incidence of drug addiction is probably, particularly prescription drug issues, is probably a little higher than the general population. Alcohol is probably a little bit lower.
Interesting.
Tobacco is lower. I mean, some of this simply has to do, I believe, has to do with level of education and
Access?
well, so the
Is
prescription.
that the same for physicians? I'm just wondering if you know that, Donna.
I believe it's the same as
For other physicians?
yeah. I'm not a real good source on numbers like that, but
we'll
I
look
would.
that up though. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's really
I would say
interesting.
it's the same. Yeah. It's funny. There's an urban myth that I don't think I've ever met anyone who hasn't heard it, that dentists have the highest suicide rate.
Yeah, where the heck did that come from?
Yeah, please expand.
Is it just because people don't like to go to the dentist? Sometimes, no offense.
I don't think, that's interesting.
What do they project that? Where do you think that urban myth came from?
It came from a lot of suicides.
Oh, okay.
So it's true.
Yes. So what I'm
No, that's not funny.
No, it's
No,
not funny.
no.
So it's not a myth.
The way you said that was a little humorous, but
Yeah.
So it's not a myth.
No, so it is a myth that dentists have the highest suicide rate. However, dentists, physicians,
do have a high. I know the physician numbers.
I always feel a little funny saying that dentistry is a stressful position, and then am I going to say that to people who
9/11 responders, right? Yeah,
right,
yeah,
exactly.
Right, exactly.
It doesn't really it doesn't really sound like a high stress position, and yet I don't know if I wouldn't say peer-reviewed articles, but there's plenty of anecdotal information that it's a high-stress profession.
And some of it, though, I was thinking about the isolation. I was just going to say, part of it, I've learned through the research that Alan's he's shared with me and in my speaking to these groups and wanting to understand their struggles, but some of it's very isolating. 68% are in private practice.
Yeah, so there are some specific,
very isolating.
There are some risk factors, and I happen to think there are some things that are very unique about dentistry, but solo practice is a risk factor. It can be a risk factor. So, first of all, there are personality traits common among people who are drawn to this profession. Perfectionism is huge.
I did read, and I'm quoting the article, being anal retentive.
Yeah.
I'm just quoting the article.
Do we even use that phrase anymore?
It was in the article.
Can I say something? I want a perfectionistic dentist. You know what I'm saying? I like that in a dentist, personally. I don't want them leaving anything in there.
Yeah.
I want them triple checking. So I would say that would make you a very successful dentist if you're detail-oriented. And I mean, perfectionism for your own personal life, not good.
Right.
But for your work, right? That would be that's a skill.
But you know as well as I do that instincts run wild can turn from assets to liabilities.
There's
Love
a continuum.
Love
Alan,
it.
I'm going to give you a high five. You can't see that because it's a podcast.
It was an aha moment.
But I quote the French proverb, great men have great faults, great women have great faults. If you have a great talent in one area, chances are that continuum swings the other way, whatever that talent is. So perfectionism in one area can lead to real
I don't speak
devastating
French,
stress.
so I've never heard
Well,
of it.
I don't even know how to say it in French, so I don't even know who said it. But it's just right? Because and you have to be extremely ambitious to get into dental school.
Yeah.
And can I just ask you one thing that I know, because my daughter's roommate from college became a dentist, and the stress, the financial stress.
That's what
of dental school and having to borrow money to start the practice. I didn't really realize
That's what
because you can, as a physician, you can work in a hospital-based practice for a while and then save money and I didn't even that. I mean, it was just a little bit. I heard from this young woman, a bright young woman, very ambitious, had no idea the almost sounded that it was greater, maybe the financial.
It's
pressure.
a major issue. The predominance of solo practice is starting to trend downwards.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think there are some real there will be some real benefits to that. There'll be, you and I were talking about this.
The equipment.
So number one,
Shared
financial
equipment.
benefits, shared equipment. Because
Shared
if a physician wants to get some very expensive scans done, it's done at a hospital where he doesn't have to buy the piece of equipment or rent it.
Never thought of that.
So financially, there will be some benefits. Secondly, it will reduce isolation.
Collegialism.
And that's a huge thing. And I think we'll see less stress as a result of that.
Isn't that interesting? So economic pressures to where the market kind of writes itself in different ways may actually lead to a better outcome for dentists, quality
It's something
of life.
definitely. I mean, hopefully they talk about it. In dental school, just like some creative solutions for like joining practices instead of just branching out right on your own in the beginning.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it was... It may, to a large extent, be finances that is driving that change.
Okay.
No, that could very well be. But I believe there's also a change coming simply from a younger generation who is coming into dentistry. And they, in general, of course, are less focused on the traditional career track or quote-unquote climbing a ladder than they are about their quality of life. And I think younger dentists can see how important, it's more important to collaborate with your colleagues than to compete with your colleagues.
Isn't that great? Because I read a lot of business stuff. That looks like it's going across the board for all professions right now. Young people being willing to, they're kind of rebelling against my generation. I'm 52. Where work, and providing was the most important thing, and then you pay for leisure. They don't want to live that way, and I love it. That's great to hear. Because I would think almost maybe one area, and it's good to hear it's not true, of people who wouldn't be affected by that trend would be, I always think physicians and dentists the most driven because they have to to get through that schooling is just so brutal, Well, we're going to have to wrap up for this morning, but can you give us, you mentioned 12-step groups and other self-help recovery groups. Do you have any other words of wisdom for medical professionals, dentists who may be looking to take care of themselves? The collegial piece, find colleagues. What else do you think?
Well, again, peer support does seem to be the most important thing. Getting involved in organized dentistry is a very good way to combat isolationism, which is a word I just made up.
I love that. Actually, I think that's a political word, but I'm going to use it. We're going to use it. Yeah. Right? Isn't that like a political thing? But I like it for this purpose.
And I think it's very important for younger dentists to put a lot of thought into what they think their practice, what sort of practice they want to. Do they want to be in private practice, or do they want to be in a community center? Do they want to be in public health dentistry? Because different personalities will thrive in different environments.
That's right. It's got to be a right match.
Yeah, so talking to dentists who are already wet-fingered, so as we say, dentists who have been out there for a while.
With gloves, though. Always with gloves.
Always with gloves. And by the way, we're not anal, we're oral.
Oral retention. Oh, yes, of course. That's such a fallacy right there. Alan, it's been great speaking to you, and we look forward to having you. Will you come back as a guest? This is our first venture bringing guests on, and you're our first guest. So let's see how this goes.
We're sick of talking to each other.
It will be a tough act.
Well, I'm not sick of it yet, but I want to talk with our friends.
I know.
It'll be a tough act to follow, but good luck in finding something.
Well, if you start at the top, then you're always aiming high, I say, Alan. So thank you very much, Dr. Alan Budd, for joining us.
You're welcome.
And giving us some wisdom for healthcare professionals.
We're signing off, and remember,
we want you to take your recovery very seriously,
but not yourselves too seriously.